Hi, welcome to section 1.7. Here we're going to go over unit conversion with word problems or unit conversion applications. So we're going to go over one example. However, the process for unit conversion will be ultimately the same for all type of unit conversion application. So it's best to follow the process carefully. So let's take a look at the word problem in this unit. Carlos is designing the exterior of his shed and he needs a set of wired fence for the bottom end of the shed. Carlos measured around the shed at 48 feet. If the wired fence is sold in meters, how long does he need to buy? Now below we have information where 3 feet is equal to 1 yard and 1 yard is equal to approximately 0.914 meter. So let's start working on our unit conversion. The first thing we need to know is the starting information, which is the measurement that Carlos had, which is 48 feet. So we're going to write 48 feet as a fraction. So below, I put 48 feet over 1. Now next, we need to set up our next step of the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply to a new fraction. In this fraction, we had to set up based on the information that is given. Now when it comes to unit conversion, when we're multiplying to our second fraction, so we're going to use the information from the first in order to input into the second fraction. So I repeat, you're going to use the information from the first fraction into the second fraction. In this case, the information we're going to use is feet in the numerator of the first fraction. We're going to put it in the denominator of the second fraction. So what just happened is we use the information of feet from the first fraction numerator and input it into the denominator, so I repeat, the denominator of the second fraction. So now we're going to look at what information we can use from the given word problem that is associated with feet. So looking from the information that's given, the one we could use is the 3 feet equal to 1 yard. So since 3 feet equals to 1 yard, the information on the 1 yard, that will go into the numerator of the second fraction. So yards in the numerator and feet in the denominator of the second fraction. So once we establish what information we're using, now we're going to input the numbers in their corresponding units of the second fraction. So 1 yard, 1 will be in the numerator, 3 feet, 3 will be in the denominator. Now, the goal of this conversion is to go from feet to meters. So with these two fractions, basically we convert it into yards, but we need to continue an extra step to convert into meters. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply to a third fraction. So we're going to set up a third fraction here. Now we're going to follow the same process as what we did before from the first fraction into the second fraction. So repeat, we're going to repeat the process from the first fraction onto the second. So now here we're going to use the second fraction as our starting point and then input into the third fraction. So what we did before, we're going to use the information from the numerator of the second fraction, just like the first one. So we're going to use the information from the numerator of the second fraction and we're going to input it into the denominator of the third fraction. So yard was the numerator in the second, so yards will going to be in the denominator of the third fraction. So it's just going to be the same process as what we did from the first to the second fraction. Now we're going to repeat the process from the second to the third fraction. Now looking at the information that we have yard, now the first one that we highlight in purple, we already used that one in the second fraction. So therefore, The other information that is associated with yard will be the 1 yard equal to 0.914 meter. That is the one we're going to use. So since yard is in the denominator, we're going to input meters into the numerator of the third fraction. Now once we establish the units in their proper place, we are going to input the numbers that corresponds to their units. So for 1 yard, the 1 will be in the denominator, and 0.914 is with meter, so that's going to be in the numerator of the third fraction. So I repeat, 1 will be in the denominator, and 0.914 will be in the numerator of the third fraction. Now here, since we're multiplying with fractions, and basically once our goal is to have meters in the last fraction of the numerator, we basically finish filling out all the fraction. What we're going to do next is divide common units. You can only do this when you're multiplying fractions. So repeat, we're going to divide common units into 1, and we can only do this while you're multiplying fraction. So the first one is, notice how we have feet in the numerator of the first fraction and feet in the denominator of the second fraction. So since 1 is on the top and 1 is on the bottom, they will divide into 1. So we're going to cross them out. Now, when I'm saying cross them out, I already established that they will divide into 1, not they will cancel out. There is a big difference between dividing into 1 and canceling out. In this case, in this example of this process, we're going to divide. Feet divided by feet will be 1, which is why I cross them out, because you're not going to see them when they become 1. Then we're going to do the same process. Notice how we have yards in the numerator of the second fraction and yard in the denominator of the third fraction. Again, when you're multiplying, we can divide them from one from the top and one from the bottom. In this case, yard. They're going to divide into 1, so I'm going to cross them out again. And again, as I established before, it will divide into 1, not cancel out. So once I divide all the common units, the only thing left is the numbers in meter. So I'm going to set up the work. So in my numerator, it's going to be 48 times 1 times 0.914 meter. And then in the denominator, it's going to be 1 times 3 times 1 again. So let me move the work so we have more space. So now here we're going to multiply the numerator. 48 times 1 times 0.914 meter. When we multiply, that will be 43.872 meters. Then in the denominator, I'm just going to simply do 1 times 3 times 1, which will be 3. Then I'm just going to simply divide 43.872 meters by 3. When I divide by 3, I'm going to get 14.624 meters. So I repeat, when I divide by 3 to 43.872 meters, I'm going to end up with 14.624 meters. And that's going to be our final answer. Now, if you're doing this on the weekly check, you're free to use a calculator, but it's very important that you put the numbers in the right spot and you put the units in the correct spots in order to get the correct answer. So I recommend to be extra careful when you set up the work. Make sure that you follow the process carefully.